The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the UMass 5 College Credit Union, offering Co-op Advantage checking with cash back on all purchases, plus secure debit card controls, all from the UMass 5 mobile banking app. Insured by NCUA, umass5.coop.
Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte. Later in the show, we'll hear about an ensemble melding slam poetry, modern messages, and theater staging, and whose work you can see in Florence this weekend with Brothers Keeper.
And we'll head up to UMass Amherst, where Professor Nathan Center takes us around to look at the wildlife, specifically birds, and teaches us how the buildings are posing a threat to those migratory birds and how students and the teaching staff are coming together to alleviate that.
But first, Thursdays are usually the day that we chat with Representative for the 2nd Congressional District, Jim McGovern. However, due to a family tragedy, we will not be speaking with him today. It was released earlier that McGovern's daughter suddenly passed away after incurring cardiac arrest in Italy.
Here's the statement from the McGovern family on the passing of their daughter. Molly radiated pure joy. She lit up every room with her beaming smile, full of laughter, endless warmth, and a sharp wit that could disarm you in an instant. She was unbelievably funny, fiercely loyal, and wise beyond her years. Molly had a rare gift. She made everyone feel special because she genuinely believed everyone was special. She treated people with compassion and kindness, always standing up for the underdog and making fast friends wherever she went. Her love for the Boston Bruins was fierce, but it was no match for the love she gave so freely to her family and friends. If you ever met Molly, you carried a piece of her light with you. She had that kind of effect on people.
Even as she faced a rare cancer diagnosis, she did so with relentless courage, optimism, and tenacity, refusing to let her illness slow her down. She had just finished a semester abroad in Australia. She passed away unexpectedly in Italy while visiting a good friend and his family. Molly will always be the soul of our family. We're so proud of her and so glad that so many people were touched by her incredible life. We love you, Molly. We miss you already.
Our thoughts and hearts are with the McGovern family at this time of grief and hardship.
In many cultures, a sign for souls moving from one plane to the next is a bird in flight.
Lucky for us, a lot of those birds have just returned to Western Mass, unaware of the windows that await them.
So when it comes to birding, is the earlier in the morning the better? Because this is earlier than I've wanted to get up to do a radio segment since I quit the morning show.
Yeah, we're a little on the late side here, actually. I'm sorry to say.
Thank God.
Yeah. Estimating that high time is maybe around 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning.
I'd say it's the half hour just after sunrise. Official sunrise is really the best time. But it's still cool out right now, so it's definitely not bad. You can hear a lot of bird activity still.
We are at UMass campus at the Orchard Hill Residences in an area that's kind of off the beaten path when it comes to UMass, and we are bird watching. I got a pair of binoculars around my neck, and we have a special guest with us. What's your name?
Hi, I'm Nate Center. I'm a professor in the Department of Environmental Conservation here at UMass.
And you're part of Mass Audubon?
I also have a position with Mass Audubon, that's right. I'm their Bertrand Chair for Ornithology.
Even your backpack says osprey on it.
Yeah.
I gotta be the part all through.
And you brought your dog Oliver with us today.
I did bring Oliver. He loves watching birds too.
Because we're bird hunting. No, we're not. Well, we're hunting with our eyes, and we're learning about the birds that we can see here on UMass campus, but also learning about how UMass campus is trying to help the birds.
That's right. We have been studying for the past few years exactly the dangers that are posed by the buildings on the UMass campus to birds that are both migrating through and living here the rest of the year.
Because they could be exposed to really dangerous information, and if they go to the W.E.B. Du Bois Library and check out the wrong
book.
book.
Back to their flock all woke.
That's right. We don't know exactly what they're getting into here, but the real problem is that windows present a danger that birds can't perceive.
Yeah.
And so across the U.S. each year, up to 1.24 billion birds die because of colliding with windows. And we've found that hundreds are dying each and every year here on the UMass campus, and so we're trying to do something about that. The problem is that birds don't perceive windows as a barrier. They can see through them, or they see what's reflected back behind them, and they're trying to get to that.
That's like me with sliding glass doors. I also don't perceive them as a barrier.
I mean, the same trick that interior designers use with mirrors in small rooms to try and make them look larger. And you walk into a room and you're like, this room is gigantic. And then you walk into a wall.
Yeah.
We learn all sorts of things about our ability to perceive our environments. And birds, unfortunately, this is one of their big shortcomings, shall we say.
They haven't caught up evolutionary to our windows.
They have not. So we've found, or other people have found, that if you put up window coverings that break up the visual field for birds, you can still let light in through your windows, which is, of course, why we want them, but you can also disrupt their desire to fly into your windows.
Nice.
So we're going to be putting those up on the UMass campus, But in the meantime, I want to show you around all the birds that we've got here because we've got some pretty cool natural areas that have a lot of birds.
Let's check it out. Come on, Oliver.
It's grass.
It's good for them. It's like extra fiber.
Up until a point.
So what is this area called where people might come and birdwatch here on campus?
Well, just like the residences, it's called Orchard Hill, and then it sort of grades into Sylvan Woods, and then there's some other experimental fields that are beyond that. All told, UMass actually has some really great natural areas that just adjoin campus and give us a great opportunity to teach students about the natural world, but also let them get out and relax a bit.
And so this time of year, sort of late April, early May, is a migratory period for birds that are coming through here?
This is the window. New species are coming back by the day from the places that they spent time down in the winter in the south, and I hope that we'll have some new arrivals here with us this morning.
What are people coming to birdwatch for? What specific species and breeds of bird?
The Northeast is renowned for its warblers. So these are the really little, fast-moving, but extremely colorful species that come back and eat insects in our forests in the summer and spend their time in the Caribbean or in South America in the winter. So the very first warblers that come back are ones that maybe were down in Florida or Cuba or the Dominican Republic. So things like pine warblers, yellow-rumped warblers. I know some black-throated green warblers have come back. And later on, we'll have up to 32 or so species that are all moving through here in the Pioneer Valley.
Nate, how good are you at bird calls, bird songs, as it were?
You know, it's part of my job.
Yeah.
I won't deny, though, that there's a relearning period every spring. So there's absolutely no shame if you don't know exactly what a call is the first time around.
Do you recommend, as a member of Mass Audubon and as an ornithology professor here at UMass, particular apps to help people assist them in understanding what birds they may be hearing, even if they don't see them?
Well, it's hard not to recommend Merlin. It's an incredible app that you can actually have it listen to the sounds around you and it will identify them. You can also give it photos and it will identify those photos. It's a pretty incredible thing, and that's put out by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, but also was helped developed by a professor here at UMass in the CS department.
Cool. What's CS? Computer
CS,
science?
computer science.
yeah.
Sorry about that.
I was like, I can't think of what birds have to do with CS. Oh, yeah, now I know.
Only, tangentially.
Scarlet tangentially. Bird joke.
If we're just going by types, I definitely have seen 3 different types of bird.
We'll take all of them, even if they may be the ones we see around our garbage dumpsters sometimes.
Yeah, and those jerky blue jays who chase everybody off.
Are we worried about bird flu with birding? Are we worried about bird feeders at our homes with birding and the bird flu right now?
You should not be worried about bird flu and birding. Unless you are going up and kissing dead birds, I think you're probably safe while out birding.
Well, I guess that's over.
No, bird flu is a real thing, and migration has the potential to spread it to new areas, but you should not be worried if you're just going out and watching birds. I don't recommend finding dead birds and picking them up at this moment in time.
Right.
If you do find a dead bird, I would call Mass Wildlife, and they have the ability to come pick it up safely and to test it to make sure it did or did not have bird flu. Bird feeders are something that I think you can still enjoy, but you should be careful to try to clean them, maybe even more often than you normally would. And if you do start to see signs of diseased birds hanging around your bird feeder, that might be a sign that you should take them down for at least a little while and let that danger pass.
I just let the birds feed on all the terrible invasive worms in my yard.
Well, that's a good thing, too.
It's awesome. It's like, please.
Oh, there's an eastern bluebird. That's a nice one. Oh, just dropped to the ground.
Yep.
Let's get closer to these.
All right.
Flying back and forth to the ground from these lower branches here. It looks like a couple of eastern bluebirds.
It's so hard to go from regular eyes to binoculars and figure out where you're
Yeah,
looking.
so here's my recommendation, is that you find the bird with your bare eyes,
Yeah.
and then without moving them, you just bring the binoculars up, and then you try to focus. So you're doing it one-handed, which is difficult. I'm hearing a black and white warbler down below us, which is one of the migrants that's just come back within the past couple days. So it'd be nice to find that one for you.
Do warblers have a common call?
No, they actually have a really wide diversity of both songs and calls. So if you can learn their language, that can really aid in figuring out where they are and differentiating between them.
So they're not called warblers because they warble?
Well, they are, yeah.
But they just warble differently.
They all warble differently, exactly.
They're like Italian crooners. Sinatra's different than Tony Bennett.
Fly me to the moon and let me play.
They warble different.
But both handsome.
What are you seeing?
Got some chipping sparrows, too. and then some goldfinches. Goldfinches are ones that are here all year and only become gold, though, sort of around this time of year. So you might have seen them at your feeders in the winter looking kind of gray, green, but now they're starting to look their nice, bright yellow gold.
What are chipping sparrows like? They're big into golf.
They could be. I see a lot of them at golf courses. I'd never actually thought of this.
They're like putting sparrows, but...
Chipping sparrows are those ones that have that really incessant trill that you probably hear in your backyard during the summer. They're not among my favorite. I'm really sorry to say that. I probably, in fact, shouldn't be saying that, but it's true.
We're taking all the window screens down for those chipping sparrows here at campus at UMass.
No. Every bird is valuable. We're not going there.
Aren't sparrows the ones that take over nests?
Well, there are also many different kinds of sparrows. You're thinking of house sparrows, which, despite their name, are not closely related to chipping sparrows.
Why do we do this?
Good question. I don't know.
I mean, they're all birds, so they're got to be pretty closely related.
Give or take a couple tens of millions of years of that.
Which buildings on UMass campus are the worst offenders when it comes to bird collisions with windows?
As we've developed our sort of aesthetic sense over the past few decades, we've come to like windows more. And so more newly built buildings also tend to have more windows and tend to be more dangerous for the birds. So unfortunately, the Eisenberg Business Administration building is by far the number one most deadly.
Unlike all those brutalist buildings, which ironically not brutal when it comes to birds.
Absolutely right.
Is that a metaphor of economists, and general, life?
Yeah.
You said that, not me.
Interest rates are not dropping, but birds are.
I know which I'd rather have.
So we've found that there are 6 buildings among the couple of dozen that we've been monitoring that are resulting in more than half of all of the bird window collisions. So Eisenberg is number 1, up there as well as the Integrated Learning Center, the Du Bois Library, the Studio Arts building. Those are really, unfortunately, sort of far and away the biggest offenders.
And so these kind of screens or decals that you're putting on the windows have been developed through the students here at UMass to try to create something that will let the light in but yet keep the birds from smacking into them?
Absolutely right. So Meg Vickery, who's a professor in our art history department, put together a competition to try to encourage students to design bird-safe window coverings. And so we had a whole slew of applicants in the winter, and we chose one that we're going to be printing out and putting up tomorrow, in fact, on the Studio Arts building.
So this is an experiment. We don't know if it's going to work yet?
Well, we had some very specific specifications for what the design had to look like that other studies have suggested will in fact make them bird safe. So in other places, these kinds of window coverings have reduced the number of birds hitting windows by 95%.
Wow.
So we have a lot of hope that this is really going to work for the Studio Arts building.
Is there any disparity in size of the birds that continue to collide with the windows?
Well, that's why we have to specify exactly what a window covering should look like, because the smaller the bird, the smaller the sort of space they feel like they can fly into. And that's why those old decals that, you might have seen put up with the sort of silhouette of a hawk tend not to work, is that you might put one up for the window, and that only keeps the bird from flying directly into that, silhouette of a hawk. And so we found that you need to space the sort of actual covering every 2 inches across the window so that those very small warblers aren't trying to fly in between.
And is it like a reflective material, or is it like tiny pictures of cats? What is it that we're using to try to scare these birds away?
Actually, it's trying to reduce the reflectivity of the windows, but it could be pictures of whatever. It could be a picture of your son or daughter, or your mother, or your sister, or whomever.
The flying spaghetti monster.
Yeah.
The competition winner here at UMass happened to be a really cool array of different kinds of birds in a natural setting. So we think it actually will add to the aesthetic value of the building as well as helping to protect it from bird window collisions.
So they're little pictures of birds that are going to keep the birds from colliding into the windows as opposed to just trying to go mate with the window?
Yeah, birds may have problems with windows. I don't think they have problems figuring out who they want to mate with, though.
Okay.
Or is it the bird equivalent of Get Out?
It's like a warning from the birds.
It's like, no, not here, friends.
Get out.
Get out! Yo! Yo! Chill, man. Get out! Chill!
Soon we'll explore the center of a Venn diagram that includes poetry, theater, spoken word, and activism with Marlon Carey of Brothers Keeper Theater Ensemble, whose work you can see this weekend with a slice of pie at Bombyx in Florence.
But first, more birds, more better, as we venture deeper into the wilds in search of more of the many species coming back to Western Mass with Professor Nathan Senner.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM. There's so much activity in this copse.
That's a very good descriptor word. A copse of trees. I like that. Thank you. I'll bring that into my class tomorrow when I'm out here with them. This is a copse of trees. It's true. There are at least 5 or 6 species right here in front of us right now, and another couple singing down below us. So they're liking it this morning.
We're on UMass campus with Nate Center, who is an ornithologist with the Mass Audubon and a UMass professor, and is teaching us about the birds of UMass campus and about how UMass campus is keeping the birds from colliding into the windows and dying. We know that there's billions that have died over the course of this country running into windows. How many generally die on UMass campus? Is there a good estimate?
Yeah, so within the past 2 years, just in the 23 buildings that we've been monitoring, there have been over 150 bird window collisions. And that represents 40 plus species of different birds. So it's really both a numbers problem in terms of how many birds are dying, but also a diversity problem. Some of these are species of conservation concern that are only migrating through here, and others are ones that spend much of the year on the UMass campus.
This area is largely rural. UMass is like a city unto itself, and then there aren't really big buildings in cities until you get to maybe Holyoke and Springfield. Are there other places in this area where this bird collision is a problem, that maybe these UMass decals that will be put on the windows here would be used in other places in our area?
This is one of the things that actually makes me hopeful about solving the problem of bird window collisions, is that every building that has windows is potentially a danger, but it's something that each building owner has the potential to solve. Mm-hmm. You could put up these bird window coverings yourself. You could go to companies like Kaleidoscape or Feather Friendly, and you can find really quite cheap bird-safe window coverings that you could put up at your home. So each and every one of us has a role to play in solving this issue.
What keeps the woodpeckers away from your house? Would these decals work for that? I took some CDs and hung them on a string to try to to screw up the woodpecker.
You were covering enough. Now you've learned you weren't covering enough area.
Well, I put it right where they were pecking, though.
You know, I think actually if we solve that problem, we might both become rich. So let's keep thinking.
CDs only worked a little bit. They were terrible CDs. The birds didn't even care.
I keep seeing raptors being hit by cars in a quantity that I don't think I've ever experienced before. And it's always alarming because I expect pigeons to get run over because sometimes they're lazy. But I don't ever expect birds of that size to get hit. They always do that swooping thing and they're like, oh, whoops, car.
Yeah.
Is any of this and what's happening with buildings and the misdirection related to that?
Well, they're connected in the sense that we as humans are putting ourselves in environments that birds also like to occupy. And the problem with roads is that they're often sort of open, and hawks are visual hunters. And so they see things like mice or squirrels that are running across those roads, and so they're trying to catch them. And they're not necessarily ready for the fast-moving objects that are also moving along in those roads. But it is also connected in this sort of broader sense of thinking about how we as humans are influencing the environments in ways that birds may not be able to perceive really well, that just aren't sort of part of their sensory capabilities. And so, yeah, those fast-moving cars are just not something that they're in tune with.
Apart from here on UMass campus, Nate, where are some other excellent places to go bird watching in our area?
Oh, the Pioneer Valley is a great place to go birding, especially this time of year. I was at Silvio Conti National Wildlife Refuge, the Fort River Division, yesterday morning. Lovely observations of some wood ducks and some blue-winged teal, some great water birds that are moving through. You go up to top of Mount Skinner and you've got some special sort of more southerly species that are breeding there and found nowhere else in the area. There's places like Great Pond up in Hadley. Just find a copse of trees right about now, and I think you're going to be in business.
Especially because the leaves haven't come in yet, so you don't have to try as hard to see them.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Oh, that is huge. When the leaves come out in first week May or so, it's always like, no, but I can't see the birds anymore.
So now is like the perfect time.
Now is the time.
Your dog has given up on us.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like, you guys aren't dedicated to this.
Yeah.
I'm just going to wait until you decide to be real about it.
Let's do a little tour down through here.
Because I heard different calls on this side than I heard on that side.
Indeed. Looks like I need to refill it, but I teach a vertebrate ecology class, and so we've got some feeders that are hung above bear level that are out for the students to do some research on interspecific interactions. So aggressive interactions between different bird species.
Which birds are the biggest aggressors?
You know, titmice are up there. Tufted titmice. They're just sort of mean
Yes.
to everybody.
With a name like that, you'd think they'd be nicer.
Are they just like really insecure about their size? Because they're also not that big.
We're putting the tough and tufted titmouse.
I'll ask him the next time I've got one in the hand. When
It's worth two in the bush.
If you are bird banding and have a tufted titmouse in your hand, you need to watch out for the skin around your fingers. They will go straight for it, and it hurts surprisingly.
I wouldn't doubt it. So those were goldfinches that were gold up there?
Those were indeed goldfinches. You're getting
Goldfinches.
A white-throated sparrow is approaching the feeder as well.
What's the rarest bird you've seen out here?
Out here, I'll have to think about that one.
What's
Ask
the
me-
rarest bird you've seen in our area?
Well, you know, just on Sunday, I was out birding with a friend, and we came across a least bittern, which is a very uncommon species in general, and it's usually standing stock still in the middle of some reeds, trying to pretend like you can't see it. But this one was out in the open, and it was earlier than it should be here by a whole month. So it was a very weird occurrence, but we were quite happy about it.
A least bittern? I love the names of birds. They're so random.
Is there a most bittern?
Yeah.
Uh,
Who did they vote for in the last election?
No, the other alternative here at least is an American bittern, so I'm not sure what the competition is that we're seeing between those two, but
It's like a delicious IPA. It's a West Coast American bittern.
No, bird naming and plant naming are the conventions are. Whoa.
a crow.
Or just a regular old crow.
Yeah.
What? Crows are awesome. Always
Totally.
excited to see crows.
Especially the Brandon Lee one.
Wow, all right.
Why don't you tell me a story? A man and a woman in law a year ago.
Oh, there's a red bird up there.
Oh yes. Northern cardinal, our signature redbird.
If it lets out white smoke, we'll know if it's the right one.
The white-throated sparrow is one of the ones that, I don't know if your listeners can hear in the background, but Canadians love it because they think its song sounds like the beginning of their national anthem. So if you hear the Canadian national anthem in the background, it's the white-throated sparrow.
Oh. I hear it.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Yeah, it's O Canna at least.
Yes.
It may not get to the duh, but
Right. Or it just repeats the duh over and over and over again. So the reason that we care about 1.24 billion birds per year dying in bird window collisions is that bird populations in general are really dramatically declining. In 2019, a study came out suggesting that just in the past 50 years, North America alone had lost 3 billion birds, or a decline in population size by about 30-some%.
wow.
Each and every one of these birds that we're losing feels like a true loss because we don't know if the populations are on their own going to be able to rebound and replace those that are dying because of these collisions.
What is more treacherous for bird survival? Windows or cats?
Yeah, it's estimated that cats are killing 4 billion birds per year. So
Whoa! So cats are really the big offender?
please keep your cats indoors.
We have two cats and they're now both indoor cats. One of them was an outdoor cat, then got attacked, likely by a bird. So serves you right, cats. Now it's only got 3 legs. But, you know, they're all inside, not killing birds now.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I've only had one cat in my life before I became allergic, and we're pretty sure was killed by an owl.
Turnabout is fair play.
Yeah.
Have you had enough birds yet? No? That's great because there's way more birds to see on UMass campus with Professor Nathan Center.
After which we'll get a slice of prose staging its way towards progress with Brothers Keeper Theater Ensemble.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
Theater.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Window World of Western Mass, a local family business with experienced craftsmen offering wood, vinyl, and composite windows. WindowWorldOfWesternMA.com.
Do you hear the Phoebe calling? It actually says Phoebe.
I think I heard it.
Eastern Toey that was singing in here, and they say drink your tea.
Oh,
Eastern Toey, drink your tea.
I know about that call because of a poster. She's an illustrator, and she illustrates bird calls.
So that's fine. There's a yellow-rumped warbler up here. Oh,
Oh.
and there it went.
Does the yellow-rumped warbler indeed have a yellow rump?
It does. People like to call it butterbutt. So you can choose your own nice name to talk about its yellow backside.
Butterbutt is a much better name.
I love it too. We're on UMass campus with Nate Center, who is an ornithologist with the Mass Audubon and a UMass professor.
It's really interesting to hear the different calls as we're walking, though, too, because now I think I've distinctly heard 8 or 9 different ones while I'm paying attention.
Oh, at least. The only problem with starting to recognize all the bird songs and their diversity is that you can't ever turn it off. I'm just sort of always sitting in, there's part of my mind that's going, oh, there's that and that. So if I get this blank stare, it's probably because
It reminds me of The Deep Thought by Jack Handey. The crows seem to be calling his name. Thought caw.
90s humor.
Oh, I love it.
Are you maybe hearing? Let's just play it.
Okay, he's got Merlin.
You're ruining the recording.
Is that Merlin?
No, this is the Sibley app, which is put out by David Sibley,
Who we've had on our show. He lives in the area, right?
I was going to say is a local here.
And one of the most famous birders going, right?
Absolutely. I think almost everybody who cares about birds knows who David Sibley is.
Uh-huh. So that is the call of the bird, and then does it get them to call back sometimes?
It does. If there's somebody feeling territorial in the area, they might start singing in response.
Do they ever try to mate with your phone when you do that?
I haven't had that happen.
Why are you so worried about the bird mating?
I don't want to have to witness it. The birds and the bees. I'm not ready for that.
It's much harder to witness the bees doing it.
Even educated fleas do it.
Over here is a brown-headed cowbird. And brown-headed cowbirds are very unusual in the bird world because they don't build and keep and incubate their own nests. They lay their eggs in other birds' nests.
Oh, like cuckoos.
And then leave them to be cared for by those other birds.
Wow.
Deadbeat birds.
Yeah.
The cowbirds are up there in the top of that taller tree.
Take care of your own kids.
There's a black-capped chickadee flying across, a couple chickadees.
Official bird of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts?
Yep.
Indeed.
The most burb-like looking burbs of the burbs.
And those are the ones that say chickadee dee 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 dee?
They do. And did you know that the number of Ds that they add to the end of that call is in reference to the kind of predator that they're currently being worried about eating them?
Whoa, so more D's, more worried?
Yes.
Is it indeed mating season? Not to keep harping on the mating thing, but I mean, I know it's migratory season, but is this... Because we had a wreath from Christmas that we didn't take down on our house, and now it's a bird's nest. There are little eggs in there that I think have hatched.
Is absolutely mating season, breeding season, as us biologists tend to talk about it.
Because they don't always mate.
Oh, I don't know. Just
It reminds me of another deep thought by Jack Handey.
Oh, no.
They say that swans mate for life, but if you've seen one swan, it's probably not any better looking than any other swan. So why not mate for life? There's a lot of bird deep thoughts by Jack Handey.
They just invite them, I guess.
I guess that's just Jack Handey's mind, the way that it works.
I mean, birding is a very contemplative act anyway, so
Yeah.
I guess so. The mind does wander while you're trying to identify calls and find the bird that made them.
Why is the bird a symbol of peace? Why not the pillow? It still has all the feathers, but not that sharp, pointy beak.
Got nothing else.
Another common bird question, especially this time of year. Okay, a baby bird has fallen out of the nest. It's in your backyard. Don't touch it or its mother will reject it for the rest of its life. Is that true? And if there's a baby bird that's fallen out of the nest, what should you do?
It is not true. The mothers will not necessarily reject it. Imprinting is not that fast acting. It really depends on whether or not you know where the nest is and why it is that the bird is no longer in the nest. Because sometimes what's happening is that these are birds that are just trying to leave the nest because they're getting ready to fledge. And so, yes, they might be on the ground, but that's not necessarily the worst place for them to be. So I don't necessarily go around recommending that everybody just start picking up every bird that they find. And maybe watch for a little while and see if you can figure out exactly what's going on before thinking about trying to pick it up.
Is there a good time to know that, okay, maybe we should pick it up and try to put it back in the nest? Or is that the mom pushed that out of the nest because it's like the runt of the litter? Or
Yeah.
let nature take its course?
Yeah, let nature take its course is I think, generally a reasonable approach to these kinds of things.
It'll either learn and become a bird, or it'll become fertilizer and help the earth that way.
Yeah.
You know, if you find birds that have broken wings and are especially larger birds like hawks or other things, like you can call...
Tom Riccardi. Do you know him?
I don't.
Oh my God!
Oh!
You got to get to know Tom Riccardi. He's like the goat.
He does raptor rescue.
Yeah.
That's what I was talking about. Yeah. So called Tom Riccardi, and they've got the skills to actually take care of a bird and hopefully nurse it back to health.
Had to have his whole operation rebuilt after the floods because there were problems.
And he does it all volunteer, so he's like all like donation based. But anytime anybody has a wounded bird, they knock on Tom Riccardi's door, and it's like, oh, all right, I'll take him.
Yep. He nurses them back to health, put them back out in the world.
I went up to the top of Sugarloaf one time where he released a bald eagle back into the wild that he rehabilitated. It was really cool.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Got a group of blue jays being angry at something, maybe just each other.
They're always angry. Why are they so angry?
Well, they're the great communicators, actually, of the bird world. They are letting everybody else know exactly what's happening, and sometimes trying to trick them, too. So they're great imitators. They can imitate red-tailed hawks and some other things.
Too bad Blue Jays don't have the Canadian national anthem as their call, because then it would just tie it into the baseball season.
That
Great.
would make sense, yes.
Yeah.
There was a northern flicker, which a lot of people may know from drumming on the sides of their houses, that was calling over here.
A flicker?
There's an Eastern Grinder and a Southern Instagram. Isn't Flickr like a photo sharing account?
Did you say Eastern Grinder?
Yeah.
I'm out.
I did not condone bringing Grinder into bird world.
And that's a song sparrow.
What are the classes that you teach here at UMass? Nate Center, UMass professor and part of Mass Audubon.
Right now I teach a vertebrate ecology course, and then in the fall I teach a wildlife population dynamics course. And actually one of the really great things about the project that we've had documenting the bird window collisions on campus is that we've had the involvement of almost 200 students, because we've been able to build it into the curricula of a number of the courses that we teach in the Department of Environmental Conservation. And so students as a part of the class are going out and looking for the dead birds, but then they're also analyzing the data and helping us put together our summary of what's been going on campus.
Is there an official bird watching club apart from just doing this study with the birds in the windows?
There's an undergraduate bird club. I can put you in touch with them if you'd like to go out with some really awesome undergrads.
They probably get up way too early for me.
They might, although they're undergrads, so there's limits on these kinds of things.
They know where the birds party later in the morning.
How is your work from Audubon tied into the courses that you're teaching here at UMass?
Audubon gets me a teaching release, and so I tend to only teach one semester per year, and then the other semester I get to devote towards research and outreach and things that Mass Audubon really prioritizes.
Now this is slated to be a different segment about birding and UMass, but Nate Center, you must know about the falcons that are here.
We do know about the falcons that are here. They breed on top of the Du Bois Library and are incredibly special part of the UMass campus. I think it's so cool that they've been able to bring them back and have them breeding here.
I don't want to reveal it if you don't already know this, but there's a regular guest of our show that will be very interested in the names of this year's falcons. So keep an ear out for that bird call on these airwaves sometime soon.
The falcons are a really great addition to the UMass campus, but unfortunately, it once again intersects with this idea of bird window collisions, because in the past couple of years we've lost a number of the young falcons that were fledged from the nest on the library to building collisions, and even one of the adult falcons last year died that way as
Oh
well.
wow, that stinks. And those are wicked fast birds, aren't they? Are they truly the fastest bird or no?
They are in fact the fastest bird. Yeah, when they get going and then hit something that does not necessarily end well.
Yikes. Nate Center, thank you so much for taking us around UMass campus. Who knew that you could, even on in the midst of this mini city in the mini metropolis of UMass Amherst, you could see so many and hear so many birds.
Thank you both for coming along, and yeah, always happy to take you out during migration. It's the time to be here.
If we want to follow the progress of the windows at UMass, where's a good place to know what's happening where, how well the experiment's going, or how well it works?
Yeah, we've got a website. Just look up Birds Safe UMass and you can follow along with our progress.
If it works, will you have different designs in the future too? Will you continue to have student contests for it?
That's the goal. So we've identified both the buildings that are most dangerous for birds, but also the specific windows. So we're going to hopefully be raising funds to put up coverings on those most deadly windows and then soliciting input from the community about what the designs on those windows should look like.
If you would like to support the cause of protecting the birds on UMass
Save
campus...
the birds, tuppence a bag.
Yeah. Oh, I love that song.
Tuppence, tuppence.
This is something people can reach out and support too, right?
Yeah, we've got a Minute Fund campaign going to help raise money to purchase more coverings for buildings other than just the Studio Arts building. Yeah, look up Bird Safe UMass Minute Fund and you'll find a way to donate right there.
And we'll link to it in the show notes.
Thanks again to Nathan Center and the goodest boy Oliver, the dog, for showing us the fun birding spots on Orchard Hill.
But now, in the waning days of National Poetry Month, where Florence has a carnival dedicated to the medium, we'll speak with Marlon Carey of Brothers Keeper Theater Ensemble, who they're bringing to Florence, to Bombyx this weekend, about their upcoming performance.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Real Pickles, a worker-owned cooperative in Greenfield producing organic fermented vegetables sourced from Northeast farms. More information at realpickles.com. The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Northeast Solar, helping customers make the switch to solar for savings, energy security, and tax incentives. Learn more at northeast-solar.com.
Am I my brother's keeper? His arms no longer show the expressway to euphoria. Track marks reveal the traffic jam of scabs detouring him to Blue Banger's calf instead. Am I my brother's keeper?
He punches in at around 3 a.m. The corner becomes his office window. A Glock 9 becomes his insurance policy, but it doesn't mean it covers his health care. Am I my brother's keeper?
Poetry and Pie. It's a community celebration of National Poetry Month this Saturday evening, April 26th at Bombyx in Florence.
With special guest artists Brothers Keeper Poetry and Theater Ensemble, this evening of community art is an activation of small-town collaboration between public arts programmer and originator of the Florence Poetry Carnival, Rachel Cyrene Blackman, the Bombyx Center for Art and Equity, and the Florence Pie Bar, which will have a pop-up pie shop with slices of pie.
Who could say no to pie?
Sounds like the best!
Since 2013, Rhode Island's Brothers Keeper Poetry Theater Ensemble has been a beacon of hope and transformation, weaving together words, emotions, and stories to create powerful theatrical performances. The group blends elements of poetry, spoken word, theater, and music to create a unique performance.
And we're joined by Marlon Carey from Brothers Keeper Poetry and Theater Ensemble.
Thanks for joining us, Marlon.
Thank you for having me. I'm very, very excited to be here. Nice to meet you both.
Computer technology has the originator of the festival digitally eavesdropping on us via the program we use, Riverside. We can see what she's saying in the chat. Rachel Cyrene Blackman. The backstory to this is that Rachel was at 413 Day, which we celebrated, and then sent us a message saying that she was used as an example in Merriam-Webster's dictionary for a citation for the word meld, but then also said you could also mention the Florence Poetry Carnival.
Which had been on our radar.
Yes.
It was like, oh, well, that's perfect. Now we have an in.
And we have Meld and the Florence Poetry Carnival and Poetry and Pie with what we're talking about with you, Marlon. Tell us about Brothers Keeper.
Okay, Brothers Keeper Poetry Theater Ensemble is a group of, I call it a super group, of 5 individuals right now. We start off with 4 of us, myself, Art Collins, Eunice Caduce, and Lawrence Nunes, and we had gotten together. And, we had another group, which because of ego, we had to rebrand and change up the personnel. It's a really nice way to say, what happens in groups and how things sometimes don't always work out. But, it's all love. But I wanted to start off with something that was going to remind us not to get into those sorts of things that would break us up. I don't know where I was, but somewhere it's like, am I my brother's keeper? I was like, and I felt it in myself that this might be the thing. So yeah, we call ourselves Brothers Keeper. This is years before Obama's initiative. My Brother's Keeper and the federal thing. It was just, an idea that we had that's probably percolating in the ether. But four of us together, we bring our poems together to create these short vignettes and sort of these mini plays that involve poetry, that carry the story with a bit of dialogue in between. There's songs. So we're not really, just a poetry group. We get up and do round robin poetry. And Lawrence and I both sing. Eunice and Phoenix are prolific in acting. Art does a little education. So we blend all the different things, and we give what I think is maybe a peek into the kaleidoscope of the Black male mentality and what's happening in our heads. This show is called Brother Up, and it's specifically about the idea that brothers, which often can refer to just males, right, in general, but in general, men don't reach out for help when we need it.
Yeah.
We don't ask for help. Hey, man, I feel low today. You want to come over and cheer me up? It's uncomfortable. Whereas women have these sort of built-in things where they almost sense each other's pain. Like, girl, I knew something was up with you. I got the ice cream. It's about that boy, isn't it? They just have it. And I don't know how they do it. But guys, it's a lot harder. So this show really is about brothering up. It's about the things that we talk about, some of the issues that men have on their minds. And it comes together, I think, in a nice little way.
It's an important topic, too. I mean, not just from the poetry perspective, the performance perspective, but this is a real, societal problem that men or men identifying people are, because of toxic masculinity, are afraid to reach across the divide to one another.
Might be the whole reason that the country is currently going through things.
Yeah, people who brothered up and were each other's brother's
keeper. If people
keeper.
brothered up more, I think you have more of your brothers say, hey, man, you think you're doing it right? You need a little advice over here. You're looking a little sloppy over here. Like, we don't look out for each other and help each other out when we see each other stumbling as much. It's, the every man for himself,
Yeah.
More so as we're dealing and getting to this place where people of color in general are tapping in to mental health because of the trauma that we all feel. I think this is a helpful topic to touch up on, and I really want to be able to just get some of these things out. I got a piece that, and it's not necessarily in this set, but it's in other sets that we've done, where I talk about what it's like to be a man on the other side of an abortion. It's as if men don't have feelings when it comes to, so it's your choice for absolutely, right? The woman's body, but there is something that happens to the man. So in the space of where wagging the finger, you're being toxic masculine, they're also saying, but you can't be soft and you can't say your feelings because your feelings don't matter because you're a man. Come on, it's a double-edged sword. We cannot forget that just being a boy, just getting to becoming a man is rife with all kinds of obstacles. And to be a good man, to be a man who's a good father, a man who contributes to society in a positive way, just those basic things just to get there. And particularly being a man of color, being an immigrant, single parent child, like all these different things that I personally, faced. I came to America from Jamaica in 1985, 86, crack era Brooklyn. I'm trying to raise a young person in that situation, it was very, very difficult, I would imagine, for my mother. But so to have made it to this level, I want to tell my story. And so that's part of what this is.
And we are speaking with Marlon Carey, who is part of Brothers Keeper Poetry and Theater Ensemble that will be coming to Bombyx in Florence this Saturday.
This seems very much to me like it taps into the nature of griot culture, where these stories are important for for cultural foundation. But in your opinion, what makes poetry a good vehicle for telling stories and making people more comfortable with these traumas, big and small, that are more widely experienced than we tend to talk about?
I mean, I've been in poetry for a long, long time, but specifically poetry slam for the last decade and a half. I've sort of been involved with the nationals and all that. And what I find with poetry is it's immediate, right? A lot of other art, like a painting, you put the painting on the wall, people come, they look at it, talk about it, sculpture and so forth is like that. But, with a poem previous to the spoken word movement and all this sort of thing, you had to go try to find it in a book, and people didn't know how to read the poetry. And then slam and the neo soul spoken word, all these movements came along and made oratory really a big thing again. And so you can get these short stories, these short bursts of emotions, often presented in a unique light, because the poet's job, I think, is to expose the everyday and the mundane and make it shine, And so in this short time, you can get what would be the equivalent of the feeling of a Martin Luther King speech but in 3 minutes and 10 seconds. You know, like you're able to get point across in a very short. So I think it can be more succinct than a film about an issue or a long song about an issue. Something about it is the immediate response. People are encouraged to react at most poetry readings, you know, because you can go some places and everybody sort of sits. And I went to a heavy metal cover band concert, you know, and it was interesting because I always thought, you know, heavy metal is like, you know, young guys go, da, 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 da. It was a bunch of older individuals sitting at a table enjoying it, clapping when it was done. And the guys on stage like, ah, there's fire flying. And yes, it was very lovely. So I think with poetry, at least, you're encouraged to snap and, ooh, yeah, say it again. And some places they say rewind, and they'll rewind. Do not say rewind in my show.
Do not take requests, especially
Do not say rewind.
VCR remote controls.
I'm not a rewind person, brother. But no, I think I appreciate the sentiment behind it, and I appreciate the energy. You know, that was so good. Bring it back, you know.
Yeah.
That's a piece of the hip hop that gets in. I think that's kind of why poetry is so effective right now. Is that it is reminiscent of hip hop. It feels like that, and a lot of people who come into poetry, particularly slam, are coming in from a hip hop background. They're influenced by, you know, one of the most poetic, you know, hip hop artists, Nas, right? You go Nas, you can go from Nas to writing, you know, poetry for your girl. That's what that'll inspire. You're like, ooh, he's so good with the words, man. I'm about to be as good. You start, but that, yeah, you certainly can go from that poetic, like Black Thought, Mos Def, Yasin Bey, Talib Kweli, things like that. You know, people who really write, and then you can go and learn how to do it yourself. So it seems accessible. One of the things is poetry seems accessible.
In similar fashion, is it hard to get like 5 different poetic voices on stage in a way that is cohesive and really resonates with your bodies?
I take the 5th. No, I mean, I love my brothers very, very much. And really, we've been doing this probably since 2012. Certainly, we've gone through a lot and then been up and down. And, you know, we've always loved each other and always come back. So, yeah, it's difficult, as it were, to get any 5 people, wrangling them. Rachel is on my list of people I would like to hire to manage this group.
Rachel is still eavesdropping on the computer here, but we cannot hear. Rachel wants a 5% commission to be your manager. That's what she says in the chat. So
only 5? Listen, girl, let's talk.
I know you need to ask for more.
She did a great job. She's been doing a wonderful. I'll tell you that. So, is it time to tell the story about the back?
Yeah. Tell us how, Marlon, you got involved in this Florence Poetry Carnival happening this Saturday at Bombyx.
All right, so check this out. Years ago, I can't even remember how many years. I'm an artist in Providence, and I'm in the art scene, and there's things going on. And there were these little orange poker chips, and this artist, this weird kooky artist, got these poker chips, painted them orange, and then wrote free pass on them, and then would hand them out to people like, here's your free pass for the day. Here's your free pass for the day. And I thought it was the most brilliant idea. Like, you know, positive art activism. And then they have, like, you know, she had on the back, you could track it. You know, you can go and just report to the site, whatever. Here's how I got my free pass, and so forth. So I imagine these things are everywhere. I don't know how many she made, but it stayed with me. And I think I kept mine. I think I had 2 at one point.
Rachel says there's 1,700 that she made.
Oh man, and it was an awesome thing. It was a dope project. So we never, like, let's say, hung out a whole lot, but we were in a lot of the same spaces. And she came apparently to the shows a few times. So she hits me up the other day, and she's like, "Hey, you know, I'm a big fan of Brothers Keeper. You may not know me, but I really want to get you guys together out here in Northampton." And I'm like, "North who?" I had never been in Northampton in my life, but it sounded very interesting. And it, you know, she said, "I really love to have the original lineup. You know, I'd love to have the Art Collins and the Unison." I'm like, all right, you know, I'm going to talk to those guys, see what they're doing, you know. But it was exciting. And so as we started going on, one day, I was like, Rachel Serene Blackman, looked her up. I was like, that's who I've been talking to? The free pass girl? Oh, my God. So we've been cool. She's been really, really helpful, just like super, super enthusiastic about getting us ready for this. She checks in. She gives me lists of things to do. And I'm just like, you're doing all the things I do for them. I think that you should be the manager. I say it again. Put it into the universe.
Then we might see more Brothers Keeper around here and around the globe, if
I
that's
mean,
the
I'd be
case.
down for it. I feel like you'd be down for it.
Yeah, and I'll say that, it is not necessarily a free pass to go to the Florence Poetry Carnival this weekend, but it is a suggested donation. And Rachel has upped her percentage for managing Brothers Keeper, Marlon, to 15%, which that seems more in line with prevailing wage, I guess, with this.
Prevailing wage after the trial period. But no, she did excellent work, man. I'm really happy that somebody was excited about something that we created a while ago that we hadn't really been, working as much. Occasionally we get calls for things, but like I said, everyone has their own separate poetry career, and sometimes they have 9 to 5s. Like Lawrence works at the hospital. He's doing HVAC. Art does work with Boston Public Schools. And so everybody's taking time from their regular gigs and their families to come and make room for this. So yeah, we go in and out, storytelling, the poetry, the theater world, and that's what I think is unique.
The Florence Poetry Carnival this Saturday starts at 7 p.m., teaming up with Bombix and the Florence Pie Bar to bring poetry and pie and to bring Brothers Keeper Poetry and Theater Ensemble this Saturday night for suggested donation to support all that work and to support the work of Marlon Carey and Brothers Keeper, who are reuniting like Voltron to come together for this event on Saturday night.
On the next Fabulous 413, we'll explore a confluence of connections bringing together the stories of many generations.
We head to Holyoke, where intergenerational foster care is meeting youth leadership work and Devise Theater with the folks from Treehouse Foundation, the Truth Tellers Theater Ensemble, and Heroes Youth Leadership Program.
We'll also have Live Music Friday with the grooves of psych rock disco band Escaper before you can dance with them at the Iron Horse for one of their late night sessions.
And a preview of Provision's upcoming Italian Wine Festival. We'll go to Northampton and taste with Benson Hyde, but the festival's happening in North Amherst, not this weekend, but next.
Next weekend, so make your plans now and go to their website and find out more information about that. I'm Khalees Smith.
I'm Monty Belmonte.
We'll talk to you tomorrow on the Fabulous 413.